In addition to the more generic withholdings tab here within the settlement system in LoadCall, the fuel cards tab offers the ability to manage third-party fuel receipt imports, where you may be giving out debit or credit cards for your drivers to use from a third party that they can use to make any fuel purchases, but then you want to have those integrated into your accounting system so you can withhold against any fuel that they may use and any other additional fees with it. So a load call offers the ability to handle all of that with a pretty easy to use system where you can create and manage fuel cards and then import in fuel receipts and link them up to the appropriate individual or carrier that used them, and then bring them in on the settlement side. So we're going to go ahead and run through this tab with this video and show how to set up and use this system with any third-party fuel card provider that you're using. To create a new fuel card within the system, we can click on the green Create Fuel Card button, and then we'll have to put in the carrier that the card is assigned to, as well as a unique identifier. So the unique identifier is simply the card number or other unique ID number that your third-party card provider will give you so that you can identify the usage of that card and collate it with the proper carrier. So this is an important thing to get right to make sure that the fees get assigned to the proper individuals. But after you've created a fuel card, they'll show up here within, we have 2 fuel cards, and if we click on the View Fuel Cards button, we'll come to this page where you can see we have these different carriers with the fuel cards with these unique identifiers. So these numbers were just simply those provided by the third-party company that can be used to make sure that you're assigning the receipts to the right person. And you can create duplicate multiple fuel cards for each carrier. So if Fast Shark Trucking has a bunch of different fuel card numbers given out to them, you can go ahead and create several for them. However, the unique identifier is unique, so you cannot create duplicates of that. But you can go ahead and create fuel cards from this page as well as deleting them here. So that is creating fuel cards within the load call settlement system. Okay, the next thing we're going to cover in fuel cards is the ability to import in fuel receipts, which will also actually walk us through creating any fuel cards that may have been missed. So you don't need to necessarily create these all up front. You can create them as you go throughout an import process. But you can notice right here we don't have any unsettled or unlinked fuel receipts right now. There's nothing within these pages. If I come into here, there's nothing to see because we have not yet loaded any fuel receipts into the system. So we're going to go ahead and do that by clicking on the blue Import Receipts button. And from here we need to choose a CSV file. So let's go ahead and choose that file. And in here, you'll notice that we have 3 required fields that need to match up within the files in order for this to work. The first thing we need is the unique identifier. So the unique identifier is that card number or other thing. It could be short, it could be long, as long as it's the unique number in order to link this up with the appropriate person who needs to pay out because they used the fuel card. The next thing that's required is a date. You'll notice right here we have the transaction date. And then the last thing is the dollar amount that was spent. So once we've got all 3 of those things mapped, we can continue with the upload process. And you can see through here, I've got quite a few in here. Some of the other options in here, you can see driver name, truck number, odometer, things like that. Some of the other options that you can see in here, these can be customized in a different part of the software, but we're going to go ahead and just import these 3. And if we scroll down here, we can say that we're going to lock the mapping and import the fuel receipts. And it says, are you sure you want to do this? This could take some time. We'll go ahead and click Start and start the import process. Once the import is completed, it'll tell you that all of the fuel receipts were uploaded successfully, or if there was an error, if one of them is missing one of the required fields, it will not import properly, so that would be displayed here. But we can go ahead and click OK. And the next step right here is to link these receipts to carriers. So we're going to go ahead and click on this blue Link to Cards button. And what this does is it takes us to the unlinked fuel receipts page. If we come back here, you can access the unlinked fuel receipts page right here, where we can see we have 342 unlinked receipts. And coming into here, you can see it'll give you kind of these stats up at the top. You can come over to this page to actually see each of the receipts. Jumping through here where you can view the raw data, which pulls up the information that we uploaded, as well as the ability to delete one-off ones if you need to do that. Up here at the top, there's the ability to link all, which in this case is not going to work because we have not, we've got 64 missing fuel cards. You could delete all in case you erroneously uploaded a old spreadsheet or something like that you don't need anymore. And then the download would just download that file that we imported previously. But what we're going to do in here, you can see that we have 340 receipts that are linked up to 64 fuel cards that are missing and one that is not missing. So if we scroll down here, you can see that this 4468, which has these 16 receipts tied to it, is collated with a proper card. So we can go ahead and click Link to Fuel Card on this, and it's going to link these 16 fuel receipts over to the carrier that is assigned that card. So if we come back here, you can see that the 4668 or whatever was the Fillmore Energy Transport LLC. And back here on this page, we can see the 16 that we just linked are linked, but they are not settled because we have not gone through the settlement process yet. So this is kind of a prereq before going into the settlements page here. But you can see right here that now those 16 that had the 4468 as the unique identifier are now correctly tied to the Fillmore Energy Transportation LLC, which also on this page you have the ability to also view the raw data, delete all, download, kind of just like the other page. But let's go back to the unlinked fuel receipts and start working through here. So if I come into the unlinked fuel receipts and we start working through here, you can sort by, the total number of unlinked receipts, the unique identifiers, whatever makes it easier. But what you need to do, and as you kind of use this more and more, as your fuel cards get loaded in, this is not going to really happen ever to you. But we're going to go ahead and kind of have all these built in so you can just click the green buttons. But right here, we have a couple fuel receipts that do not have, or unique identifiers that don't have cards. So we're going to click on the 1027, create a new card for it. We're going to assign this card to spades. And we're going to assign the next one down to A and, A and D transport. So within the system now we have these. What I can do is click link all, and that's going to attempt to link all fuel receipts, which could take a while. In this case, I've just got the two that are actually linked up. So it should be fairly quick here to go through that and link it, although it's probably going to check all of the other ones. So we'll let it attempt to link everything and see how that goes. Alright, so now it's finished linking all. However, because we did not go through and create these 62 other missing fuel cards, it obviously didn't have any more matches to link with and didn't finish building these out. So you do need to make all the fuel cards before you can finish up linking everything. But you will notice that if we come back in here, we've gone from 14 up to 30 since we did, or 16 up to 30 since we did do 14 more. So that's enough for our example here. But within this process, you would need to come in and create fuel cards for each of these unique identifiers, which it kind of nicely aggregates for you right here. And after you do so, you can kind of just link everything and jump back over into the settlements process. But the last thing we want to cover in here is the config report headers, which we'll do in the next segment here. So the last part of fuel cards that we want to cover here is the config report headers page right here. So we've already kind of gone through how to create fuel cards, how to import them, and then the process of linking them, and then sitting here waiting for them to be settled within the next active settlement. But one important part of these settlements is the ability to go ahead and give drivers downloaded reports with detailed information of the loads they completed and any of the withholdings or other things, and that extends to fuel cards as well. Because when we do this, when we import the fuel receipts, we just bring in kind of the basic price, date, and a unique identifier. There are some other fields that may be useful, maybe more specific location information or other, quantity purchase, things like that could be useful for them. And so if we want to include that information in our settlement downloads, then what we have to do is go into the config report headers here, and we can switch the report template that we're importing in to bring in additional information. So by default, it's not using any custom headers. We're just using those three, and we're not including a lot of information. But if we click on this, then we can switch to be using our preferred, custom headers. And after doing that, we get the option here to import our report headers. So by doing so, I can come in here and select an import file, and it's just going to grab the top row right here. And you can go ahead and see that that report wasn't a good example. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this and to get a better example that shows maybe what you would import into here for the reports in a sec. All right, now I'm back with a better example file here. So let's click on the import report headers, and I'm going to use the fuel headers file right here. And I'm going to load in something that looks a little bit more like what you'd probably see, rather than just having three fields. You see that we have, amounts, card numbers, which is probably the unique identifier, discount type, driver ID, names, locations, odometers, product code, amounts, things like that. So within here, you can see that this file has a lot more information on it. And by customizing this section within the fuel cards, the fuel report config, back here in settlements, it doesn't really change anything under fuel cards. But when we go ahead and create a settlement and download any information that has fuel cards, LoadCall will automatically pull all of the information in and show it in that report. So as long as you have, a cross-reference column or a discount type column or a location city column, when you import your fuel receipts, LoadCall will make sure to include that information in the settlement reports that you can generate for individual drivers and carriers. So the one other thing to note is that if you do this, you need to make sure that all of your import files are kind of consistent. Otherwise, if you're using multiple different third-party company fuel cards, you need to make sure that the naming kind of gets corrected here. Otherwise, whatever one is recent or active in here will be the one that shows up. But the other thing to note is that this can work retroactively. So if you upload a bunch of fuel cards and then later come in and do this fuel report config page, all that information should already be uploaded and safely in there. So it should work even if you forget to do this initially. But if things do change, you need to make sure that within the system here, that whatever you want your current imports to look like and the exports to look like, it kind of needs to match up in here in order for LoadCall to correctly display the right information in the right columns. But with that, that is the LoadCall fuel cards and fuel receipt import and settlement system.